everybody, it's Molly. I just got back from date night with my man, Garrett, the one that gave me the ring, if you recall. And we went to see the new Ghostbusters movie.
Don't hate us.
And so we decided to do just a quick little vlog about our take on the movie. Now, me personally, I loved both of the original movies. I watch them whenever they're on. And other than that, the only other Ghostbusters thing that I watched was Extreme Ghostbusters, which was the reboot from the 90s of the original cartoon. And
I was first introduced to Ghostbusters, I want to say somewhere around 2001, 2002. My stepmother at the time, had introduced me to the movie. She had the originals on VHS, and I loved both of them when they came out. A lot of people don't like the second one. They thought it was pretty much a rehash of the first, and it was unnecessary, but I still found it pretty funny.
Aren't most sequels?
Yeah,
honestly?
kind of. It really depends. But anyway, I had forgotten about it for quite a while, to be honest, and it wasn't until about 2014 when, unfortunately, Harold Ramis passed away, rest in peace, that I thought to myself, I need to see those movies again, because I remember really enjoying them. I bought both movies on DVD. It came with a couple episodes of the real Ghostbusters. It was the cartoon before Extreme Ghostbusters. And, you know, ever since then, I'd forgotten how much I loved the movies, and I'd been a big fan. I learned a little bit more about the history. It came with a little sort of film memorabilia books to talk about, like, the production of the movie. And I don't know why. I've been trying to find Ecto Cooler for months now. They said it would be out, and I haven't seen it anywhere in my stores. Tell me where the Ecto Cooler is! Okay. Anyway. I never got to try Ecto Cooler. Point being. Okay. Next. Okay, so...
But yeah. So we went to see it, and the new Ghostbusters movie, and I tried to go into this not comparing it to the original movies at all. I tried to go into it just looking at it as its own thing, even though it's already an established franchise.
I had tried my best not to compare it to the first movies, despite that, as much as I loved the first ones, and I tried to go in with an open mind. She had to keep reminding me not to really compare too much. The thing is with this movie is that there was a lot of hate on it, or there's such a war on this film. It was coming from two different sides. If you liked the film, you were deemed a feminist. You were siding with women or something like that. It's like there was just this weird kind of
more that you like this film purely because it has an all-female cast, and not because it was an actually good film or anything like that.
And then there are those that hate it, and then if you hate the film, that the feminists will claim that you are sexist, misogynistic, you don't believe in equal rights with women, which is ridiculous.
And both sides of the argument really hold no merit whatsoever.
It's gotten so exaggerated and blown complete out of proportion, where people have just forgotten that it's just a movie. Like, the first one is no masterpiece as good as it is for the both of us.
It's one of those things that is so ingrained in 80s cheese that it's kind of just become its own little time capsule of a thing. There's a lot wrong with the first movie and the sequel to it. So,
and with that being said, to talk about this film, I'm just going to go ahead and give my verdict. It was completely harmless.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was good. I personally...
Much like the original.
Yeah, just completely like the original. I laughed at a lot of the parts. Some of the jokes fell kind of flat. There were definitely some problems with really just writing in general. We'll talk more about problems later, but what did you think of it personally?
Like I was saying before, it's no classic piece of filmmaking, but it is a fun little bit of brain candy, much like the original. There's a lot wrong with it, but there's enough good in it to where, for me personally, I can let the problems slide and just enjoy it as its own fun little romp of a sci-fi comedy thing.
The first thing I want to say, to go ahead and get the good out there, I actually really like the 4 as the Ghostbusters, and a lot of people are obviously gonna think I'm afraid to be called sexist, but no. More specifically, Holtzman, the blonde girl with the yellow glasses, is especially my favorite. She was just outright hilarious, and I want to point out something that with each Ghostbuster, you don't
Try
get...
not to shake the camera, sweetie.
Sorry. There's not really just one Ghostbuster portraying another. Rather, each one is sort of has gathered a different trait from each original Ghostbuster, and I find that to be so clever. You don't want to just sit there and say like, oh, that was the Egon one, or oh, that's the Venkman one, or that's Ray. That's
Winston.
Winston. Why do I keep forgetting his name, for crying out loud?
Because he was only in the last third of the movie, that's why.
Yeah, but I love Ernie Hudson, so.
Okay, but basically is that they didn't try to rehash the character tropes from the first movie. They actually wrote them as their own characters, which is really commendable. I mean, they did the exact same thing with Extreme Ghostbusters in the 90s, which was the cartoon that I grew up with. Rather, that was a continuation of the original cartoon. It still had Egon and Janine and Slimer in there, but they took a backseat to the new, younger Ghostbusters, who all had their own personalities and points of interest in terms and talents.
And speaking of the original roles, obviously there are going to be a lot of cameos in this film, and they were actually pretty well written into the story. Instead of like making a cameo as the characters that they were before, this is a completely different universe. It's a reboot, which means that in this one, the original Ghostbusters did not happen. With that said, though, the characters that these people play, the moments that they appear, it is pretty funny. You do occasionally get a tip of the hat from each person, acknowledging something about the original films, which is totally fine.
Because it's meant to be a nod to the original franchise, but it's also meant to be its own thing. So those little referential bits, I can understand how they might be grating for some people, or kind of a slap in the face if you don't particularly like this movie. I can understand how that might rub people the wrong way.
Right.
But for us, they're just like fun little Easter eggs. Would make for a nice drinking game, though, honestly.
Oh yeah. It's like, take a shot for every time there's a reference to the old movie or there's a cameo.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's pretty much all that was good. The main characters themselves were written pretty well. The cameos were great. The jokes were pretty funny.
Yeah.
I suppose we should talk a little bit about that right now.
Yeah.
With that said, the writing, as there were definitely some high points, there were still low points. The first point I want to talk about is Chris Hemsworth's character. The first half of it, don't get me wrong, first of all, the joke is he's stupid. He's eye candy for the girls.
He's hot. He's the hot blonde receptionist who doesn't have a lot going on up here. And that would have been fine if they had made the character more endearing in his stupidity or his naivete. But you're watching... I got the sense when I was watching him, I was just like... Are you on something?
I swear,
Because if you're not, I seriously think that you should be.
I was sitting in the theater seat. I was just like, you have the IQ of a chestnut in this movie. I said, please redeem yourself in Thor 3.
Exactly.
If it ever comes out.
Yeah.
But
whatever. But
well, yeah, see, the joke can be funny for occasional because you don't want to run it too much into the ground. I mean, he could be naive, he can still be kind of smart, but it's been drilled into the ground so much that it starts to bore. Both in the sense that it's drilling into the ground and that it's become boring to the person. It's not as funny as it was. The second problem with this film is the villain itself is really lackluster. I don't want to give too much away in spoiler terms. We're not going to really talk about what he has planned in this movie, but we will say that the villain's backstory is not very good. It's a very weak cop-out.
yeah.
With that being said, it's just like a simple explanation like, oh, I was bullied as a child and now I'm going to take my revenge on the world. Rather, if you're going to give a villain a story, you either need to cut out the backstory completely and make him sort of mysterious, psychotic person.
Much like what they did with the villains in the first two movies. They didn't have a lot of backstory to them. They were just the big bad.
Right, like Zool and,
Gozer.
And gosh, the villain in the painting, Vigo, that's it. Yeah, you learned about their history. Well, Vigo at least had a past before he haunted the painting in the museum, but really, a good example of a villain with no backstory is Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight. We hardly know anything about Heath Ledger as a Joker, the origins or anything. And he was just downright evil and psychotic, and it was amazing. This one, but like I said, you either want to give him no backstory at all, make him mysterious, or you want to give him all the backstory so you could possibly sympathize with the villain and understand exactly why he's become this way. If you become so enraged by bullying as a child, and this is coming from someone who was bullied, that you want to do something like this, it's not... You really need to get your priorities straight. And so... Yeah, aside from that, there wasn't a whole lot of... Those are the low points of the writing, and they are kind of big flaws when it comes to how you see a film. Yeah, when it comes to screenwriting. It makes for a good climax. It was really good, it goes through the usual Ghostbusters tropes, but it does it in its own way. And it's still pretty interesting in the sense that it makes it work for modern cinema.
Yeah.
And keeps in touch with the original traditions. I've talked pretty long, so I'll let you go ahead. Sorry.
I think really those two characters, Chris Hemsworth's character and the villain, were the two weakest parts of the movie, honestly. I think another thing where people were pretty split was the CGI and the special effects, and we're kind of split in that as well. See, I personally like the designs of the ghosts. I think they're very creative. I think they're very highly stylized, and especially in the climax when you see all the ghosts and all of the different things they do with that, it's very visually interesting to me.
Right.
And I enjoy it.
And the first couple of movies, well, specifically Ghostbusters 2, because I remember the ghosts invading town then, you know, you can get really creative with that one. I think the one that made me laugh the most is when they said the Titanic just arrived and all the ghosts were getting off the ship. And like, in this one you get to see all the ghosts around town, and there's one where they point out a Thanksgiving pilgrim from a Macy's parade or something. Oh, and on the subject of that, with all the ghosts running through the sea, I will say this. They gave the most useful cameo for Slimer you could ever get. Like, Slimer actually does make a bit of an important appearance in this film at the end, and it's pretty good. You're going to be laughing. I will say that. It was pretty well done. With that said, for me, the CGI, and again, I don't mean to compare too much to the first one, but when you look at the effects from those, and this was in the 80s, it still gives me a sense that the ghosts are really there, because you can still really see the people behind it. I've gotten so used to modern CGI that I can almost tell what is and what isn't there, and like, it's not that I'm knocking it anymore. I used to really be anti-CGI. People think that I'm not. It's just that I kind of wish we would go with more practical effects, like Mad Max Fury Road. Like, yeah, there were some effects that were done to the film that were done with computer-generated imagery, and it was very well done, but at the same time, all the practical stuff, the stunts and everything, was just downright amazing. It deserved all the Oscars it could grab. Yeah. But with that said, this film, the ghosts, while they are pretty well designed image-wise, there was just something about it to where I still kept saying to myself, it looks great in scale, it's much more colorful than the last one and everything, but I still got that thing in the back of my head that was just saying it's all computers, but it was still enjoyable. I mean, I still liked a lot of the camera work and angles they put into it, so that was still interesting.
And what he was saying about the CGI being a problem with him not knowing that it's not there, not really there. I've since kind of turned that switch off in my brain or something, or I've grown tolerant of CGI to the point where if it's really well done, even though I know it's not really there physically, it doesn't bother me anymore. I think CGI has gotten to the point where even though we as the audience know it's not there, if it's done really well, really stylized and artistic, you don't care. You know, it depends on how they're using it, really. I mean, if they're trying to make an object look as realistic as possible, your brain is going to tell you it's not actually a real thing. It's just a three-dimensional computer model.
Right.
But you don't, at least I don't run into this problem with the CGI ghosts in this movie, because they're so outlandish and stylized that even if they were practical effects, you know that it could never exist in reality. So it's just kind of a weird thing with my own brain. I have just since learned to just get over it, I guess.
Right, and there are times where I can really commend the CGI. Like, for example, last month we went to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. That was a choice for my birthday because I love Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
While the computer imagery in that one definitely did have its problems, specifically, as much as I loved Bebop and Rocksteady and the way they were written in that movie, the imagery could sometimes, it was, again, you could see them in there, like, yeah, they're not really there or something, or it's like it's green screen costumes. I still loved the CGI in that, especially for like how they had updated the turtles, because in the first one, the CGI was done well, but the design for, like, say, the faces didn't look quite as appealing. This one, they were a little brighter in color, they were smaller, they had better face structure and all that.
They tweaked.
Much better adjustment. So, like, with Ghostbusters, the design doesn't bother me near as much as it does with some other movies. You know, this one is completely fine. And with that said, the overall great about this film, I usually give it like a 1 to 10 sort of grading, but this time I'm going to go with a bit of a letter. I'm going to give it like a B minus. Altogether, the writing was pretty moderate. The effects were pretty decent. The camera work was all right. It was very funny. The cameos worked in well. Nice gestures and tip of the hats to the original. And like people just, all I can say is get over it. Things like this are gonna happen, and it's just it's completely harmless film. Just something to turn on and enjoy once in a while.
Yeah, I kind of give it somewhere between a B and a B plus. I think that was just mostly because I enjoy the spectacle of it all, just watching it in the film in theaters. I may not have been as lenient with it had I just seen it on the small screen or on DVD, but being in the theater and seeing all of the awesome stylization and the big ghost battles and all of that made it a spectacle for me, and so I'm a little more lenient with my grade. So B to B plus.
Yeah.
And more to the point, you talking about the Ninja Turtles movie, I kind of went into this the same as I went in with the first Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movie. I had very low expectations for it going in. I didn't know what I was going to get myself into, so I tried not to get my hopes up too high. With the Ninja Turtles, the only thing that I wanted them to do right was the characterization of the turtles.
Exactly. Yeah.
Each of them had their own distinct personalities in all the forms of media that they had.
Right.
Except for the very earliest ones. As long as they got those personalities and that interplay with the brothers correct, then I would have been happy. And they did. So that's why I love that movie.
Like, the first one of the main problems was that it focused a lot more on April than it did the Turtles. The Turtles didn't get near as much screen time for a Ninja Turtles movie.
Another thing that they fixed in the sequel, thankfully.
Yeah, they fixed that in the sequel. There was definitely far more Turtles, but even though there wasn't...
Megan Fox.
Yeah. Even though there was less Turtles, there was still... The writing for the Turtles was still fairly good. They still acted like their own personalities, and like you said, you have helped me a little bit with reminding myself not to compare too much and get my hopes up to the original source material, but
I think that's where a lot of the criticisms have come in, people trying to equate this to the original franchise and failing miserably.
And sometimes, I don't mind going to see a movie without knowing the original source material to begin with, because then I don't have anything to compare it to, and I can just look at it as a movie itself. I mean, look at when we went to see Deadpool.
Exactly.
I hardly knew anything about it. She, for sure, wanted to go see it for Valentine's Day, and I thought, why not? It looks fun. I did look up a little bit on it, and I definitely looked into the video game, all the cutscenes from it, and I could see why there's a big fan base for Deadpool, and so when I saw the movie, I loved it, Gosh, we're just talking about movies in 2016.
He graces my walls,
yes.
So yes.
Yeah, exactly. But that's pretty much it, so
yeah,
I think I've added all I had to say. So.
This is a nice little ramble.
Yeah, just a ramble about how to look at movies in general, I guess. People.
I think that's what I'm gonna title this video. Just a movie ramble.
Talk about Ghostbusters and a ramble about the perception of film.
Yeah.
Something like that. A big fancy title. so.
I'll figure it out in post.
Yeah.
But so yeah. More to the point. Talking about my channel. I'm gonna bring in Becky to do the next episode of Pillow Boys. If not tonight, probably tomorrow night. It really depends on her mood. And I don't know if...
her channel.
And I don't know. You probably have to be leaving soon, don't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'd like to. I wouldn't mind doing a reaction with you sometime because, like, from what I've seen, they're pretty funny.
Yeah, maybe on a later episode or
yeah,
something.
whenever we have the time.
So, yeah, look for that and subscribe to my channel, like you said. Like the video, comment, and if you want to hear us ramble on about other stuff that we enjoy, feel free to tell me that at the very least. So yeah, that's pretty much it. See you all in the next video. Bye bye.
Ciao.